Hello, friend. I am Love Smarts Lizzie, and I'm so glad that you're here today because we are going to be talking about putting the sieve in passive aggressive. And what I mean by that is that there's actually kind of a wisdom and there's a golden nugget in these times that you're being passive aggressive or your partner's being passive aggressive. And unfortunately, it is really hard to get at that nugget when the passive aggressive stuff is happening because it's really confusing, it's really annoying, and it can be really disconnecting. And so, what we want to do is capture the essence of what is trying to happen, but to kind of get rid of all the stuff that maybe we don't need to be there so much. So, let me first just talk about why. We don't become passive aggressive in a vacuum, right? We learn this behavior, and it's usually because either in our childhood or in past relationships or maybe just society in general, we learned along the way that expressing our feelings directly, it's not going to go that well. And we all know that just like stifling your feelings doesn't really work either. And so we have this conflict between, do I express this or do I stifle this? And what ends up happening is that if we do stifle it or try to stifle it, it's going to come out in a different way. And that way is not going to be something that we can necessarily control. But at the same time, when it does come out, I don't know about you, but I think the real wisdom in being passive aggressive is that in a time where you actually do feel pretty powerless, you feel in this tug of war, and you feel like you're not sure if the person that you're talking to is a safe person, you actually do get this sense of delicious power. And that's part of what we do want to keep, but we want to make it a power with and not necessarily a power over. And so that's part of what, when you notice being passive aggressive, you're not a bad person. You're actually just trying to get a sense of power in a situation where you've learned that it's actually really hard to be truly powerful. And so that's the first thing that I want to say is that when you're being passive aggressive, the shame is not helping. And so one of the things that you want to do is really look at what is happening, what am I stifling, what do I need, all of that stuff. And that's really hard to do. I've got some tips for you later on about that. But essentially, I just wanted to let you know that being passive aggressive, it comes from a really tough place. The second thing that I want to offer is that our emotions, especially when we've been taught that like emotions are not okay to express, we want to think of our emotions almost like a cat. And I don't even have a cat, but I know from hanging with cats or like being around cat people that when your cat comes into the room, they might be sort of sussing out like, okay, is this place going to be chill for me? Are they going to be okay with me not being chill? And you can't even always explain it. Like sometimes the cat comes into the room and you don't even know why they run out. It could be that you like looked that way for a second. It can be that you reached over for the chips. But emotions are sort of similar. Like they might kind of show their face and come into the room, and you want to do sort of whatever you can to make it feel safe for them to stay so that you can talk to them or pet them or do whatever. But sometimes they're just going to dart away and you're going to be like, well, I don't know what that emotion or thought or whatever was. And similarly, like, I don't know if you've ever had like a cat come onto your lap and your friend is like, oh my God, they never do that. And you're just like, okay, I guess I live on this couch now. Because when the cat comes onto your lap and it's like, hey, I feel good, I feel safe, you want to create the environment that lets them stay there. And one of the things that I do when I'm tapping through being like passive aggressive or maybe hyper independent, or maybe I can't quite tell the difference between the two, which is usually the case, I make myself a promise that anything that I discover in journaling or tapping or whatever I'm doing, anything that I discover about my emotions, I don't automatically have to tell my partner about that. And maybe I'll still choose to tell my partner. But what I'm trying to do is make it safe for the cat to even come into the room in the first place. And so that's kind of the rule that lets it open up the space so that when I'm tapping through these things, when I'm trying to figure out, like, am I upset? Like, what am I upset about? Because I'm kind of acting in this way. Um, that's what really lets me have permission to do some like emotional scuba diving. Um, and the third thing that really helps with times when I'm passive aggressive is tapping. And if you've never done EFT tapping, I'm going to show you, I'm going to demonstrate. And especially with something like this, it's really helpful to get super exaggerated and be even a little bit dramatic, because that it's almost like writing the first draft of a brainstorm, so that you're not censoring yourself, you're not editing, and you're really allowing yourself to remove the shame so that you can see what is underneath, like what is the nugget, what am I putting through the sieve, and what do I want to keep. So with that said, all you have to do is follow along with me, tap where I tap, and repeat the phrases after me as I say them. So, are you ready to put the sieve in passive aggressive? Let's go. I'm just tapping because I'm fine. So repeat that. I'm just tapping because I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. Because I don't really care. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm just over here doing my thing. And maybe I won't want to hang out with you until you magically know what I need. And you should be able to figure it out. And if you don't know, I'm not telling you. And even though I'm being a little bit difficult right now, I choose to love, accept, and forgive myself. Even though it's so hard to admit that I might care about something, I choose to love, accept, and forgive myself. Because there's probably a really good reason. I probably learned somewhere that it's not okay to care. That if you care, you're vulnerable. And even though I can sometimes put my walls up because of that, I choose to love, accept, and forgive myself. And I choose to start to peek over those walls. Maybe with an illegal drone to see what I can find. Okay, let's pause there and check in with yourself. How did that feel? To just kind of let yourself be bratty. How did you feel about the shame and the judgment of, people who are passive aggressive? Notice that, and we're going to keep going. So, if you don't know, then I'm not telling you. Because if I tell you and you do it, then it won't really feel real. And I won't be able to take it in. And I'll feel like I owe you forever. Because maybe that was true in relationships in the past. But on the other hand, if I do tell you and you don't do it, I feel like that's even worse. Now I've opened my heart to you. And you get to decide whether you fulfill my desire or not. And that is a really vulnerable place for me to be. I would almost rather not say anything. Because then, at least if I don't get what I want, I know it's because I didn't ask. So it makes sense that I can't even access what I want. But maybe I can start to look for clues. Maybe it wasn't the wind that made the door slam so hard. Maybe that was me being angry about something. I wonder what I was angry about. Maybe I can retrace my steps and figure it out. But at the same time, it's not super important right now. Maybe what's important is knowing that it might be okay to be angry. It might be okay that it wasn't the wind. And even though I haven't always felt safe being angry, I choose to love, accept, and forgive myself. And even though I've expressed anger in ways that don't really help the relationship, maybe I can forgive myself for that too. Because I'm learning to be in the middle of this tug of war between stifling my feelings and expressing them. And to be honest, I'm not a super fan of either option right now. And maybe being passive aggressive is a way to dip my toe in the pool. To see what would happen if I expressed my emotions. But the problem is that doesn't give me real data. It just gives me data on what would happen if I was passive aggressive. It's like dipping my toe into the pool when the top 6 inches of the pool is freezing, but maybe underneath it's a nice 70 degrees. And even though I've been afraid to deep dive, I choose to love, accept, and forgive myself. And I might be willing to try dipping my toe in a different way. Maybe that means creating safety through communication. Maybe that means creating the confidence in myself that even if I express an emotion and it doesn't go well, I can still have my back. And I can talk to my partner about what it feels like when I don't get the response that I'm looking for. All those things might be okay. But that also means admitting that I care. And I still don't know if I'm ready for that yet. Because to be honest, not caring makes me feel so powerful. It's like nothing can get to me. Like, yeah, whatever, do whatever you want. I'm fine. But the truth is, my real power doesn't come from things not getting to me. It comes from knowing that I'll be okay no matter what. So I say, bring on the icy water. I'll just do a cold plunge. And even though I've been passive aggressive in the past, I choose to love, accept, and forgive myself. I choose to be open to new ways of doing things. And I choose to have power with and not necessarily power over. And if I hate all that, I can go right back to being passive aggressive. I always have a choice. Even if I pretend that I don't. Because that's a big part of what being passive aggressive does for me too. It creates this fantasy that I can't help it. When really I'm at the driver's seat. So I'm gonna zoom through the beautiful Mario Kart of life. And pick up all the coins. Clearly I haven't played this game that much. And lean into the curves. Maybe throw some turtle shells sometimes. And I'm gonna have fun the whole road doing it. Okay, let's stop there and take a deep breath in and let it go. So, I'm so curious how that felt for you. If you noticed any things coming up about the times that you might be hyper independent or passive aggressive, or just in general nervous about sharing your thoughts and feelings directly, because all of this stuff really falls under that umbrella. No matter what the behavior is, it comes from a deep fear of being vulnerable and of sharing your heart and maybe getting feedback that makes you question why you did that. But in my experience, just FYI, it's almost always worth it to express yourself, to share what's going on, no matter what the other person's response is. There's some great videos and resources about voluntary vulnerability to make sure that you're sharing with the people who are going to respect your story. But yeah, I just wanted to offer that like, if you're ever in doubt, expressing yourself directly is usually the best bet. So I hope that's helpful. Please leave a comment if there was anything that you noticed or anything that you're wondering, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye.